Hi everyone, my name is Thomas Walsh. I'm a senior communication major at UMass Amherst, and today we're going to be talking about some of the topics discussed in one of my classes, which is titled Communication Technology and Work. So we will discuss about how some topics involving social media trickle down into their effect on the companies involved in the shared economy, such as Uber, Lyft, etc. But to start off, we'll talk about social media and some of the major platforms and the roles that the users with large followings play on that platform. So the social media platform that we're going to focus on today is Instagram. And Instagram is a little bit different from some of the other major social media platforms in a way where it's a little bit more simple because the content that is put on there by the users is a little bit more peaceful because it's not based around speech or opinions. It's more so based around, for example, users post pictures and the only reactions that other users who are exposed to that content may have is liking the photo or placing a comment. Whereas on other platforms such as Facebook or Twitter, there is some positive content that's displayed on there as well, but there's a greater opportunity for negative content to become popular, whereas people can express their negative opinions. Or the moral of the story is that Instagram users become connected to different users in a more simple way than weeding through a lot of negative content and being exposed to a prominent reason why you may not want to follow or align yourself with a specific user. In the early stages of Instagram, those users with the largest numbers of followers were mainly celebrities or athletes, people who already had a massive exposure to the public and who had some sort of notoriety. But as the years went along, people who produce popular content on Instagram that gains a large number of likes or attracts the most people to their post, they also achieve a form of celebrity status, which in the article by Marwick is categorized as a micro celebrity status, whereas these people have sort of turned into stars in their own right. Some of these micro celebrities have then gone on to be featured in television shows or movies, and they have created this modern complex business model based around their own personal brand that they've created for themselves, beginning with the content that they originally produced for a platform such as Instagram. And as for the ones who haven't, there are still plenty of micro celebrities that strictly produce content for Instagram, and they still have these massive thousands to hundred thousands, potentially millions of followers who are exposed to their content on a daily basis. And these users become very attractive for large companies. And in this case, we'll talk about how companies involved in the shared economy, such as an Uber or Lyft, go on to partner with these micro celebrities and turn them essentially into a social media influencer who can express the value of their business and hopefully attract new customers to a business such as Uber through promotional campaigns such as discounts or other things in that nature. So now getting into the shared economy, we'll talk about some of the major players, some big names that we all know, such as Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, or Amazon Mechanical Turk. And we'll talk about how these companies direct their attention to public opinion and how they can mold that in a way to gain rapid acceptance of their business models in new cities or new areas that they expand to with their almost unlimited resources. And we'll also talk about what is sort of underneath that public opinion of their business and kind of get down to what actually goes on underneath. To make one thing clear about Uber is that one of their goals is to monopolize their industry, and not only to monopolize it, but to become synonymous with the ride-sharing industry. That aspect of the shared economy, not only would they like to take over, but they would like Uber to be the first name that pops into your head when you even hear about a ride share or an outdated word, which is a result of their actions, which is a taxi or cab service. And based on an article that I read for class titled Uber and the Lawlessness of the Sharing Economy Corporates, I was able to draw some conclusions about, the direction that the shared economy is headed in based on these executives for companies such as Uber. It is partially the fault of the users as well, because users such as myself are so quickly to accept the introduction of these companies in the shared economy in our own homes, in our own towns, the places that we live or that we work in, that we rely on the convenience factor that these companies provide. And once we become too reliant on it, we eventually drive out the other forms of business and competition that is essential in a market in order to reduce the chance of a big company like this becoming a monopoly just based on their idea of exposure first and profit later mentality that they can do based on their nearly unlimited resources. Now, influencers are all over the place on Instagram, and for those with large numbers of followers, these followers a lot of times don't even realize the motives behind the promotions that these influencers are putting along with their posts or putting along with their pictures, or the video featuring some sort of product placement from one of these big companies in the shared economy. Because these large companies are so good at these marketing techniques that they have even partnered with large organizations that also have a presence on social media platforms like Instagram. For example, in an article titled "Disrupting Regulation," the authors address how companies like Uber have targeted very specific and groups or individuals with a large fear of influence, and it is very calculated. For example, Uber partnered with the group Mothers Against Drunk Driving in order to build this narrative that they are not concerned about themselves, that their motives are surrounding the health and well-being of communities, and in reality their motivations are really driven by the profits that they see at the end of each year and how they increase exponentially, and that allows them to take these chances and not necessarily focus on how much they're spending, but focus on their larger sphere of influence across the country. This attack on public opinion makes it very difficult to combat the rapid expansion from these large companies, and it raises a lot of concern as to whether or not these companies are past the point of slowing down. Now, something to consider here is who is to blame in all this. Now, we've already talked a little bit about how the motives of these large companies may not be what they make everyone think that they are. For example, they may not actually be too concerned with limiting the number of drunk drivers in a specific area. They may be, and maybe a slight concern of theirs, but at the end of the day, they're focused on their profits and how much money they can make and increasing their influence. But when we talk about these influencers and users who follow these influencers, do we blame the influencers who are trying to make an honest living through based on the number of followers that they have honestly gathered over the years of producing content just by themselves or through collaborations with other people who have large numbers of followers on the platform? Or do we blame the users who are sort of misunderstanding the purpose of these marketing tools that spent a lot of their time just trying to gain some sort of interaction with the people who do have the large numbers of followings on Instagram, who are the influencers themselves, who these users will seemingly do anything in order to develop that connection. They live for the parasocial interaction. They feel like they know that influencer when in reality they don't. And they may not be aware that this person is not being an advocate for Uber just because they like the app, but Uber may have invested some money in them in order to target you as a user. So in conclusion here, we really need to take a step back and look at ourselves as users, either as a user of social media, as somebody who is exposed to a lot of these influencers, or a user of apps involved in the shared economy. And we sort of need to gain back our control by educating ourselves on the full scope of our involvement in either the platform that we're using on social media or the company that we're interacting with through the shared economy, and realize how much influence we as users have and how we should not simply comply with the direction that some of these people with large spheres of influence try to direct us towards. So thank you very much for listening.